Hey guys, Rob here from D&D Toy Reviews, and today we're going to be looking at the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Batman Beyond, specifically the one that does not come with the Build-A-Figure part. So for accessories, we get the standard collector card that has a shot of the figure, and on the back some information about it. We get this flight stand, which is, well, pretty crap, really. It's got some soft ratcheting, and there's Batman falling over. It's got some soft ratcheting at this hinge here, and you can swivel the clamp around, and that's really about it. It does have a peg on the bottom that you can put into the foot if you want. Let's get you standing back up again, which you really don't like to do. Thank you very much. And so when you're using it, basically you can only clamp it onto the figure straight on like this, or you can swivel it around and then clamp it to the front of the figure. Sorry, that was completely out of frame. But due to the size of the figure, you're not going to be able to angle it in any meaningful position. So really, they really need to redesign these flight stands because they're very, very limited in what they can do. We also get two flame effects that plug into the bottom of the feet, right in the hole there. You just push them in. And then we've got the jet boot flight effects, and they're done in a translucent orange. This one's got a little bit of yellow mixed in, and you can see the color goes from lighter to darker towards the end of the flame effect. Those are really nice. They got some nice sculpt, and the coloring is very nice. We get two sets of hands. So on him I've got one of the trigger finger gripping hands and another gripping hand. And for the other hands, the left side, we get a trigger finger hand, and another extended gripping action pose hand. Now, the hands are pretty easy to swap. You just pop them off the peg and pop the new hand back on, and they go on really nice and easy. Now, my problem with the hands is they're not the same. Well, obviously not the same. What I mean is they're not the same design. If we look at this gripping hand, we can see the fingers come out to the pointed talons that are on the Batman Beyond suit's hands. But if we look at the other hands, the trigger hands, first, there's no talons sculpted into the end, and the fingers aren't even the same size. I don't know if you can see that, but if you look at the talon finger hands, they're very long, very thin fingers. But the trigger finger hands are quite, let's get that in focus, quite short and pudgy. So they're not even the same sculpt design. So if you're mixing the two, like for example, if you want to have him doing an action pose with one hand and then gripping his Batarang with the other, the aesthetic really isn't going to match. And it's really annoying. And speaking of the Batarang, we get one red Batarang that looks nothing like the Batarangs that we saw in the Batman Beyond cartoon. I don't know if he uses this style in the comic books. I haven't really followed the Batman Beyond comic books, but this looks absolutely nothing like the correct Batarang, which has a long, narrow body and curved wings off to the sides. So again, that's very frustrating. For articulation, we get a ball joint at the head, which swivels around no problem, looks up a fair bit, looks down very well. That's incredible range of motion down. We get shoulders on soft ratchets that go all the way up past 90 degrees. Swivel all the way around, and you get the tiniest hint of a butterfly swivel. There's double jointed elbows, and the wrists are on a ball and ball and peg, so you can swivel up and down, spin them around, and then spin the peg inside the forearm to get the hand going in any direction you want. There's a ball joint at the upper torso that allows for some good swivel, nothing forward, back a fair bit, and then another one down at the waist, which allows for the same motion, swivel, nothing forward, and back. The hips are the standard McFarlane Multiverse hips that have the universal joint. You can get forward that far. Back goes pretty far. Out, pretty far out to the side. And the swivel is built around the hinge inside, but gets you basically no swivel at all. More than most Multiverse figures, though. Double jointed knees. The same joint at the ankles as the wrist, which always looks terrible on the McFarlane figures. So you get forward, back, you get a decent rocker, though the rocker is always going to be a bit difficult to get looking natural. And you get a toe pivot. Sculpt-wise, the figure is kind of a mixed bag, really. The main body does a very good job of emulating the simplistic design of the Batman Beyond suit. You know, it was never really overly detailed or technical looking. It was very plain, ordinary. But the head incorporates these lines. Sorry, see if we can get that. There we go. Incorporates these lines into the design, which looks kind of out of place with the rest of the simplistic look. And I know Terry was never the giant powerhouse that Bruce always was portrayed as, but man, he has really got to hit the gym more, because those arms are just puny. There's virtually nothing there. His bicep and tricep is almost the same width as his forearm. And this is a problem that a lot of McFarlane Toys Multiverse figures have, is that the sculpt for certain portions is just really off. And also for the forearms, we get some technical armory look to them. That doesn't want to show up. There we go. You can see there's some detailing in the forearms. The bat is done in a beautiful red, and it's a nice big emblem, covers almost the entire chest, although I'm pretty sure that mine isn't quite centered. The belt is painted red and silver. For the most part, it's done okay, but there is a bit of slop around the edges on the silver, and there's a silver dot in the middle of the belt buckle. For the wings again are a bit of a mixed bag. This is probably the only only Batman Beyond figure I've owned that can actually plug his arms into the wings, and we'll show that in a second. The wings themselves are a nice sculpt, very large, very expansive, if you will. And they're on a soft ratchet, so when you open them up, they are going to stay open. You're not going to have to worry about them drooping down. And we can see here the wingspan is pretty impressive. And there's a slot right there in the wing that you can tab the arm into so that it stays in place. And you don't need to worry about, you're posing the figure and you bump the arm out of position, then you got to reposition it to look like it's lined up with the wing. So that's a nice touch, but the trade-off is you get this giant tab sticking off the back of Terry's arms that just looks terrible in any pose where it's showing up. And also, when the arms are plugged in, there's really not much you can do with them aside from moving them up and down. So I don't know, it's a nice feature that you can actually plug the arms into the wings, but I don't know that it's worth the trade-off. And we can see the wings, the outside of the wings, entirely the wrong color. That should be black. So overall, I mean, it's a decent enough figure. We'll show some size comparisons here, if I can get him to stand, which is a major problem with a lot of the McFarlane Toys figures, as I said before. Getting them just to stand up can be quite a pain. And he's not going to stand, so let's get him on his balanced against his figure stand so we can get some size comparisons. So here he is next to the Mezco PX Sovereign Knight. You can see he just towers over him. Here he is next to a Hush, Mafex Hush Batman, which is just ridiculously way too small. And then here he is next to a Mattel Multiverse figure. And, yeah, Todd decided to go with a much larger scale for his Multiverse toys, sorry. And so mixing and matching really just isn't possible. So overall, you know, I had high hopes for the Multiverse line when it was announced that McFarlane was going to be taking over, because his sculpts are usually killer sculpts. But out of everything I have left from my initial dive into the line, I've just got the Arkham Knight Batman and the Gotham White Knight as Bat. Everything else I got rid of because there's limited articulation, or the sculpt is terrible, the scale is all over the place, and I think I'm done with the line, to be honest. This figure is the last nail in the coffin, if you will. I mean, like, if you want a Terry with the mouth showing, then you get the wrong Batarang. If you want the right Batarang, you get a Terry with a mouth plate over his mouth, so you don't have the right face. And you get the Build-A-Figure part, which if you don't want, then you're stuck with the part. So, I don't know, if you really want a Batman Beyond figure and you have the money for it, I'd say track down the Mezco. It's not 100% accurate to the source material, but it's definitely an amazing looking piece. If you want something that fits with your figures and isn't going to break the bank, then I'd say look for the Mattel Lobo Wave Batman Beyond, which has removable wings, it has the right Batarangs, it has alternate hands, and it can actually stand. So that's it. I hope you liked the review, and I'll see you next time.